and it started to pour in. And in my fear state, I thought, I am in hell and I'm getting ready to get burned by this that's coming in. And so I bent over to brace for it. And the next thing I remember is just feeling immense pain in my back.
Welcome to the Light You Are podcast. Our guest today is Michelle Ledbetter. She's spent 20 years in hospice and had an NDE in 2019. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Tyler.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming. Can you take us, what was life like before the NDE?
So I thought I was pretty normal. Was a nurse, a mom, a grandma, but in moving through life, I realized there was always something kind of missing. So I was always felt like I was doing this grind. I did have a pretty significant childhood where abuse was involved. And until my NDE awareness that came after my NDE, I didn't recognize the actual heaviness and how that had held me. But some things were revealed during all this, and I was able to see the bigger picture. I was relatively normal. I was kind of grinding through life, doing the best that I could, but I felt like something was missing. And many times in life, in my prior life, I had kind of filled this void with substance, or I left a marriage after 18 years and I was just on the hunt to try and find this happiness. I explain it kind of like I felt like I had a little hole in my love cup. And although I could get it filled up, it would be fleeting. And so it would go away and then I would have to go out for something again. So I was searching. I was a searcher. But if you would have met me on the outside, you would have thought I was pretty well put together.
Can you take us to the point of the accident?
Sure. So I was actually traveling as a hospice nurse and I was moving from assignments. I was traveling from Montana trying to get to Texas and I was trying to outrun a snowstorm. And when I hit Colorado is when it was just a torrential storm where the snow was blowing sideways. And so the only way I could stay on the road is to follow truck lights that were in front of me. And the last thing that I remember is following those lights and then having this feeling like, I think I might be in trouble. And then it was just kind of lights out. What ended up happening is the truck went up over a pass. And when the truck went over the pass, I ended up going off an embankment and I came down and had a L1 burst fracture, a broken spine, and a significant closed head injury. The next thing that I remember, like I said, it was just complete lights out. I felt like, something's impending doom, something's going to happen, but then it was lights out. I don't remember anything until the paramedics were trying to get me out of the car. And I had, Tyler, this overwhelming sense of peace. It was so profound, where you would have thought otherwise I would have been really afraid and nervous. I just felt very held. I felt very secure. I was not afraid at all. I was traveling with my little dog and I noticed that she had hit the front windshield because it was cracked, but there was no fear. And it was such a profound sense of peace, but because my altered reality NDE experience was so distressing, I didn't even recognize that until I was integrating it, right? And so years later, it was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that piece. So it was very peaceful. We ended up going to the first facility where they did some imaging and they recognized that my spine, the spinal injury and internal wounds were not stable. So we had to do urgent surgery. And before I left, they had let my little dog stay with me. They had said something about impounding the dog. And that was the first time I got a little bit nervous. But then this angelic nurse comes around the corner and she said, "Hun, don't worry about it. I'm going to keep your dog until you get out of the hospital. Everything will be fine." And Tyler, it's almost like I saw angel wings on this woman. And I had such a profound sense of being cared for. And I could see the godliness in the people that were caring for me. The two paramedics that had originally picked me up had come back and I was kind of in and out. So it was very foggy. But they had brought a little gift basket with this little stuffed dog since I wasn't going to be able to have it. But the people were just so kind. And so they made me feel so very comfortable. So they had to transport me to a trauma center to do the surgery that night. And I don't remember anything I don't remember too much of anything until a few days later when I woke up in ICU. But the first experience that I had, I don't remember being put to sleep or going to the OR. But the first vision that I had, I was in a warehouse type setting, and I felt the presence of my daughters behind me, and I turned to look at them, and they there was no speaking, but I just gazed at them, and I heard, "Mom, this is not our journey. You're doing this by yourself." And they walked out this very heavy door that had a little window on it. And I started to feel some fear and confusion and panic. So I went up to the door and I looked out and I saw them just walking away in a barren land. And then I got really afraid because I thought, where am I? What's happening? Why are they leaving me? I turned back in towards the room, and there's no color in any of this. So it's just a very gray scale. I turn back into the room and I see a little boy and a little girl across the way. And I saw a couple other things that were really hard to see. I had an HIV patient that I had befriended many years prior, and he was in this, and he was on a bed and struggling. And I don't necessarily like to go into the detail of it because it was pretty horrific. And so fear just started to rise in me. And after that ended, there was like a film that started to go across, and I recognized that what I was watching was my childhood. And as it starts to go, the children are on the other side of this film. And as it starts to move along, I was raised by my father for the first 7 years, and it was a very, pleasant time for all the things I can remember. But as we moved into once he got married and they had a child, and abuse became part of the story, both physical and sexual abuse, I had to move. I was moving through that again, not only being in it again, but I was observing it. And the fear and the confusion, it was so overwhelming that it's hard to articulate it. It's like there was nothing that I could compare it to. And as my scenes start to end, I look at the little girl, and as I look into her eyes, another roll of film starts to come, and it's her childhood. And again, I'm observing it, but I'm also actually in it with her. And so her childhood, when, I say mine was very, very challenging, hers was even harder than mine. And to sit with it and feel what she was feeling, and then feel what I was feeling as far as the fear, it was just an enormous amount of confusion and fear, and the thought of, oh my gosh, I might be in hell. Moving through hers, it was horrible because at least in mine, I kind of remembered the sequencing of events and I knew what was happening next. I didn't know what was happening in hers. And so I was caught by surprise, and it just even intensified the fear more. Hers started to end, and then this little boy, same thing. I looked over at him, and a film started to roll. And it was a film of a young boy that was very traumatized, grew up in a home that was very unloving. Abuse was prominent in this review as well. And again, I am watching it from my place, but I'm also seeing it from his eyes at the same time. And I know that doesn't make sense. It's hard to articulate that, but the emotions were so compounded because I'm feeling the children's emotion, I'm feeling my emotion, and I'm thinking, I can't do this anymore. And just as I'm thinking that, oh, I'm so sorry, my Alexa just went off.
Hey Alexa, dismiss.
So as I'm thinking, I can't do this anymore, this warmth started at my feet and it started to rise up my body. And as it rose, it almost forced me to look up. And when I looked up, the ceiling of this warehouse setting started to crack. And as it cracked, light started to come through and these tiles started to lift. And that was the first time I noticed color, but it was in such a bright light. It was a color I've never seen in this reality, but it was very bright. It kind of had orange, yellow, gold hue to it, and it was like liquid. And it started to pour in. And in my fear state, I thought, I am in hell, and I'm getting ready to get burned by this that's coming in. And so I bent over to brace for it. And the next thing I remember is just feeling immense pain in my back. And I screamed out. And as I'm doing that, I open my eyes and I recognize I'm in the ICU. And I look over to in the corner, and there is an African American lady sitting there. And I was startled. I was afraid. And I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm here to help you." And, with the traumatic brain injury, they reserve sedation because they want to make sure that your neuro components are coming back, your facilities are coming back. So I guess as I was moving through this altered reality, I was actually physically expressing it as well. I was trying to get out of bed. And so they had to have physical people there to keep me safe until my cognition started to come around. When she said she was there to help me, I thought, great, because I'm right on the heels of coming out of this. Like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. And she must have thought I was just crazy, right? Trying to get out of the bed and that sort of thing. And I was so afraid, but there was absolutely no way I was going to tell anybody what had happened. As I started to come around and I started to move back into this reality, I was ashamed. I didn't want anybody to know I had been to hell. And it was so distressing that I didn't want to look at it. So I came home, and recovery was a challenge, not only physically and mentally, but I came home and my best friend was dying of cancer. And so it was a really hard time. And those emotions would come up, as I am recovering. And I was not good at feeling emotions, right? Based on my childhood, I learned early to try and suppress those with whatever, substance or alcohol or watching too much TV. I had learned that, numbing, at least you didn't have to deal with it. So I carried on for 2 years. And I got addicted to pain medication. And my best friend was moving through his transition. And the beautiful thing about not being able to work, we did get to a point where we got to spend a lot of quality time together. And because he was living on borrowed time, he started to share with me how to maybe open myself up to God and different spiritual practices and different possibilities. And so he really kind of was a catalyst to help me move to the next level. I had a final hoopla where I started drinking because I was going to be watching my grandchildren, and I was having so much back pain. I thought if I just take a little drink and take the edge off, of course, you know how that goes. So I lost track of what was happening. It was just terrible, at the bottom of the barrel. My friend had passed away. I was still recovering from the surgery, and I just made a complete fool of myself. And so I recognized at that point that I needed help of some kind. And I had tried, been in and out of the rooms before, and that just didn't seem to work for me. And so in resignation, I just said to life, look, I have no job. I'm at the bottom of the barrel. I had no money. And so I was essentially forced to sit with myself. And that's when things started to shift for me. So what happened, Tyler, after that is once I started to surrender, I started practicing meditation, and it became a gateway for me. I was spiritual. I knew there was something more, but I was not religious. My abusers were involved in the church. And so that just kind of negated anything that was said. And it didn't make sense to me how this loving God could also be so cruel. So I started to just get quiet, and I asked life and God just to please help me. And I was prompted in this meditation to ask myself, what is this trying to teach you? And how can I see it differently? And when that happened, it was almost like grace was granted to me again. And this, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a voice within my head. It's an essence that's within me that I never knew was there, right? I never knew it was in there. But that it allowed me to move back to that place and look at it again. But it was almost like I was blanketed. So the fear didn't come with us as we went through it. And when we finished the journey, I was told at that point that those children were my abusers. This always gets me just a little bit. Hold on. And when I heard that, unconditional love that I had never experienced before just started to rise in me. I had so much compassion for them, and the only thing I could do was extend it to them. When that happened, Tyler, something lifted off of me that I didn't even know had been with me for 53 years. It was like I released that was suppressing me. And so I continued meditation because it was helping me. The messages that were coming in, and the guiding that I was getting was so helping me. And so I continue to do it. I'm kind of a meditation junkie now, because it's in that place that higher version of myself, that God essence, that high vibration will speak to me, and I can get those answers. And I've gotten a lot of clarity in things. And so I share the story because I know I'm not alone in having some childhood traumas that can sneak up on you. And I had no clue. I really thought that I was doing, okay. But those things can be very dense. And as we moved through this, and I was told that they were my abusers, I was also shown that the fire of hell that I thought it was actually the light of God, the love essence of life that was trying to come in. And as those wounds that were in my soul were coming up, as I'm reviewing those in this space, it just wanted to shine a light on it so that I could look at it differently. And all of a sudden, I saw it differently. I saw why it happened. I understood why they were who they were. And all of the animosity, all of, any kind of negative, dense vibration that I had around it just completely lifted. And so I was able to start doing that, practicing that in life, and recognizing that, all of those things, those hard challenges are opportunities for us to heal those wounds, right? So that we can become the best version of who we are. And it's available to everyone. It's not just me. I thought God was something that was outside of me. And one of the biggest takeaways is I never realized I was so divinely connected, that I am a direct extension of God, life force energy. There's no way we can be separate from it, right? And I started to see how, here we're all connected. That life force energy, God, that breathes life into all of us, that's a universal thing. That is a connection that holds us all together. And so my message is to help people remember, right, the light and the divinity within, because it's not out there. It's right in here. And so when you can tap into that, all those things that I was looking for were right there the whole time, and I didn't even know it. So I share that story so that more people can meet themselves there at that divine essence of who they are and live from that heart place.
People who have hellish experiences, do you think it's because they carry fear throughout their whole lives that they may go to hell?
So the conclusion that I've come to, so being a hospice nurse for 20 years, there's something called terminal agitation. And I would see it quite often, and I never really knew what it was. And of course, we have medications to soften it. But going through my own experience, what I truly believe, and in my meditation practices and some of the information that I've been given, is we all carry, we come into this world and we have the essence of love and light, the purity of who we are. And as we are conditioned and we move through life and things happen, it starts to kind of build barriers around our light. And that's a protection mode, right? We go into protection, and we'll put these little barriers and beliefs about ourselves that in the beginning, they're there to protect us, but sometimes we'll carry them into adulthood. And if we don't release them, I truly believe that nothing goes back with you except for the love, the essence of love that we are. And so at some point, either during this journey or towards the end, we have to dump the junk. And I believe now that I've been through my own experience, because the people that are moving through it look very much like I did, very agitated, trying to get out of bed, picking at clothes. It's very distressing for people to watch that. But what I know is it's happening for them. And so had I known this, maybe I wouldn't have been so afraid. But I want to share this too. So as people are moving through this, whether it's yourself personally as you move through end of life, or you're watching somebody go through this, and it can be hard to see, know that those things are coming up because they're not going with them. And they're coming up so the light of love, so God can shine a light on them and help them see from a different perspective what was truly going on, right? And so you release all the animosity, you release all the anger, you can see it for the truth, for the wounds of, other people. So that you can actually return to non-physical without any of that heaviness.
Tell me what life has been since.
Magical. Magical. Well, first 2 years I had to continue hell for a little bit, right? But since my my new awareness, my new awakening, my realization that I'm divinely connected and that all the answers and all the resources are right here within me, life has just become a beautiful place to be, right? And I believe that I don't believe in hell as a place. I believe that it's a state of mind. Um, and in heaven, when we leave the physical form, the expansion and the rebirth into that, I can't tell you what that's about. But I do believe we can live heaven like right here on earth once we get to this place, and once we recognize, take our power back, because so many times we give it away and we don't even recognize it. But we are so powerful beyond what we've been told and taught. And the message is about connection and love and coming from that heart space and getting out of our head space. Now, I've gone through some really hard times. I'm going to be really transparent with you. So, you know, I just recently lost a job at hospice because I'm at a place now that I've been through that. I cannot participate in anything that is not in alignment, right? And so even in hospice, unfortunately, there's some billing practices that aren't not in alignment with the way it should be. And so, standing in my ground, I'm not a good team player if I'm coming from that direction where I'm going to block potential admissions or, discharge people when they're not quite appropriate for hospice. And so I was let go. And that has been my love and my passion. So I went through a little bit of an identity crisis, and very quickly, though, in a meditation, I recognized that I was being asked to practice what it is that I learned in my NDE. If I could stay in a place of love and alignment when the foundation was cracking. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. Right? Like, I don't want to do this. But I surrendered to it. And Tyler, it's happened relatively easy with grace. And it really is about when I get that trigger. I felt it was very unjust what happened, but I also realized that life is turning me in a new direction. And so either I can sit in my victimhoodness and be miserable, or I can step up to the plate, lean into life, get out of my way, and see what comes next. So what has come next for me in these last not even 3 months is I finished a book that I've been writing since 2007. I started a podcast for transition to help people with end of life transition and just transition in general. The podcast is called Sacred Crossings, and my book is not out yet. It is sitting in with some literary agents now, but the name of the book is From Fear to Freedom, Remembering the Light Within.
Can you tell us what that's about?
Essentially, recognizing those self-limiting beliefs that we pick up through life, and learning how to disengage from that, so that fear isn't the driver, that we can move into the space of love and live from that place.
You said something in another podcast I was watching with you on it. Maybe I'll let you lead yourself into it. When you're upset with somebody else, maybe they hurt you, how do you go about that now?
Yeah. So, Tyler, now where before I would want to be heard, I would want to make sure that, my voice was heard. I would be very defensive if somebody was attacking to me, much like a lot of people out there. What I recognize now and what I see now is I can see when people are coming from their wounds, from their boo-boos, right? When somebody is lashing out at you, or if they're giving you a hard time, that is stuff that is within them, right? And so it comes out. Now, it doesn't become yours unless you accept it. So what I do now is I can see that it's not truly the essence of who they are. They're speaking from fear or through their wounds. And in looking at it like that, I can meet it with love instead of having fear meet fear. So I no longer have a need to prove my point. I really just kind of lean into life and say, okay, I know that this is happening. This person is obviously projecting, right? And either I can own this and get all my stuff stirred up, or I can just hold space for them to do whatever it is that they need to do and not attach to it. So it's the recognizing what is other people's stuff, recognizing what is your stuff. And sometimes those things will come to you to trigger your stuff, right? And so if something comes up that's mine, if I feel that dense vibration, that dense energy of jealousy, anger, whatever, what I have been told in a meditation is our emotions are our internal guidance that are God-given. And so when we are out of alignment, we feel those dense emotions. When we are looking at it through the eyes of ego versus Christ-like eyes, we will feel it viscerally in our body. And so that's just telling us that, hey, there it is. And you might not be able to do it right in that moment, but when you become aware of your body speaking to you and you become aware, instead of just being reactionary, just being aware of what's happening, you can definitely separate yourself and stay grounded in that wholeness and love and divine light that you are.
I love that.
Yeah.
I try to do that same thing when someone's hating. You have to look at someone's past to understand their present, right? And
Yeah.
so, but that doesn't define who they truly are.
True. Right. Right. It's like you can see the soul essence of people and not their bullshit.
I
Where
agree,
before I was seeing bullshit left and right. I couldn't even see the divinity in people.
and that
Um,
triggers you, and
yeah,
but that drags you to hell.
absolutely. That weight that and again, I didn't even know that I was doing it, right? I didn't even know that I had this weight until it was lifted. But there's no way that we can get through this life without having contrast, right? And contrast is, I was shown that contrast is actually the gift, right? Where the golden nuggets can be found. And so when it's really hard, you're being asked to stretch, you're being asked to tune in, and you can decide at that point where you're going to go. Are you going to lean into life and know that life is working for you and not against you, or are you going to take on the victim mentality and then try and drive it? And in that space, it never turned out good in the end, right? But in this space, now that I've been practicing it for 4 years, it's just magical. The divinity that shows up, the people that show up, just us meeting is just, it's divine. Like, how does this stuff happen? I've also been asked to be a speaker at this year's International Association on Near Death Studies, their annual symposium. I, I would have never imagined that my life would be turning in this direction, but here we are, and I'm just letting life lead me.
That's Ian's conference is in October. Is it next
It's
month?
it's August, the end of August. I think
August. What did I say? October.
yeah, it's August in Chicago. So I'm so looking forward to that because I'm very new to this too. I didn't start speaking until October of this past year, and I wasn't sharing it with a whole lot of people because I was ashamed, and I had to work through my own stuff. But when I put it out there on Jeff Morrow, I don't know if maybe that was one of the ones you saw.
Beyond podcast.
Yeah. And I had no idea that this whole community of NDEers was out there. I had no idea who Jeff Morrow was or what was happening. I was just trying to get it out there in what I thought was maybe a safe space. And so when I shared a little bit of my story, Jeff was the first one to contact me. And I think you're number 15. And it's like people are just coming, right? And so it's like,
once you go on a podcast that has 50,000 subscribers,
holy wow.
your story gets out. That I would say that's one of the best platforms you could probably start off with to get it out there. Have you talked to Alex Ferrari? I think I'm saying his name right. Next Level Soul.
I have not. I would love to speak to him though, because
That would be a
again,
good
he's
one.
new to me too. I wasn't running in this circle, so but what a fantastic platform he has, and the people that he has on are just amazing. So yeah, once I get my business, I've also got an IV, the health and wellness, and I'm right in the midst of getting all that up and running. And I am going to reach out to him though. And I haven't reached out to anybody, so maybe he'll reach out to me before I get him.
Well, I think speaking at that the conference, you're gonna meet so many people that you're gonna connect with and share similar stories.
I know. I'm
and
really
mindsets.
excited about that. Right. Yeah.
I'm excited for you,
Yeah.
especially if this is all new.
Right. Oh, it's so brand new. And I've learned so much in this short little time. And the one thing that I love about this is, we near death experience, altered reality, where the veil's lifted a little bit so you can see a bigger, broader picture, right? All of them, whether it seems near the distressing or the beautiful, big plate flowers and all the beautiful light and all that, they all come back kind of the same core, that love is where it's at. And so it's interesting to me that when that veil is lifted for people to see the bigger picture, that's the common theme. And of course, that's what all the holy scripts preach too. So it's just kind of confirmation that is the way to move and find your joy.
We talk about, I'm fascinated with hospice care and the things and the signs of there's something more within hospice care.
Yes.
Have you ever experienced something within
Yeah.
hospice?
Absolutely. So, I was sharing with you a little bit about terminal agitation. There's another thing called visioning, and sometimes these two things get confused. So let me clarify it. Uh, Terminal agitation truly is an agitation where somebody is moving through something. You can tell they're moving through something, and that's when I believe that people are, releasing the junk and being given the light to see it for what it is, so they can release it, so they can become non-physical and return to their home of love and light. The visioning, on the other hand, is something very different. And to be in the presence of it and be aware of it is just, it's a beautiful space. And what happens is it's almost like they have one foot in this realm and one foot in the non physical realm. And they are seeing energetic loved ones, pets, different people that they've encountered, and they start to engage with them. One of the classic symptoms of somebody being in that is they will start to reach. It's called the visionary reach. But they will have dialogue, and it is, it might not make sense to the person who is sitting there with them. And a lot of times people will kind of want to take them out of that, but it truly is. You can see it is that gateway that they are getting ready to release into the physical form. And it's something to behold, to be in the presence of somebody when they actually pass. It is as beautiful as birthing into this realm. Birthing into the non-physical realm can be just as beautiful, but we've done kind of a bad job in our culture embracing that piece of death and dying, and it is part of life. My hope is that as we share this and people are sharing their stories, that the fear of death and dying diminishes some, so that people can be present with that when it's happening. Because, I can tell you my experiences, but it truly is experiential. It's something that you have to engage with in order to understand it. There's no words to articulate the holiness, the divinity, the grace, the love that
You just
you
got to be there.
experience. Yeah.
Have you ever read The In Between? It's by Nurse Hadley. She's a hospice nurse, and
Okay. Yeah. No, I
she's
haven't
had
read.
experiences, and that's where I kind of got into hospice. The idea of the signs that come from hospice itself.
Yeah. There are things that happen that you can't make the shit up, right? Just super magical things. I do like to share a story that this happened about 10 years ago, where there was a lady who had full blown dementia. She was end stage. She had been cared for 100% by other people, was not verbal, could not take care of any, express any of her needs. And I thought she was in that transitional state, which is usually about 72 hours. She was pretty much in a comatose state at that point. And the family had called a grandson that lived up north and told him to come on. We were seeing signs that she was going to go. And when the grandson got there, she woke and engaged like did not miss a beat for almost an hour. And then when that finished, she went back into her comatose state and she was gone in 4 hours. How does that happen? Right? Like, it's that surge of energy, right? That happens sometimes right before people pass. And that, again, it's just, you can't make it up. It's just so magical to be in the presence of something like that.
Did they teach you that in nursing?
No, they don't. Those are all things you have to learn on the job.
Why do you think they don't?
We don't do a real good job of talking about death and dying in the medical field. We're here to heal, right? So when you're moving through school and all that, they don't, unless you're going into a specialty of hospice or palliative care, that's not something that's touched on.
I feel like it should be.
I agree 100%.
Because because typically they do that and then they pass.
Yes.
Or they see the relatives and they pass. And
Yes.
so I think as someone who is taking care of somebody, they should be able to see these signs, which are magical, and prepare loved ones, right?
Yeah.
Instead of that person gets up and is alive again, and then everyone gets hopeful, but that it's not where it's going, right?
Right. I agree. I think that we should, and I'm super excited about this platform, right? And all the NDEers that are out there talking, because I think that it is slowly, we're getting to a place where we can talk about it a little bit more. And I think, In the future, it'll probably be very different. But right now, it still is kind of a taboo thing. So people will move into it, whether it's with a loved one or whoever, and they'll have their beliefs and fears wrapped around it. And so they can't be present, because they've got their own boo-boos, their own stuff is being triggered in those moments. And so it would be so wonderful if we could get everybody clear up all this junk so that you could be present for people when that happens. And maybe that will be a future in the future. Who knows?
I think we have to get past it being labeled as woo stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think because we put labels on things, people dismiss too much. Right. And they don't want to, because it'll make them believe, or it'll make them feel a certain way that they're afraid of feeling. Maybe they were wrong about the way they've lived.
You nailed it.
So I think we need to get past that it's woo woo and realize that it's common.
Right. You know what I found is the woo woo it keeps people in a place where when this information is being brought up and it's not the traditional, manuscript of the Bible, or it's different. People are so invested in their beliefs that when it moves their foundation. And so they will come back at you with something to dismiss it, to disclaim it. They will sometimes be very angry and aggressive because they're so attached to their own belief of what they think is truth.
This is a question that I've asked all of my guests. Is how do you deal with a skeptic?
That's a beautiful question. Before my NDE, I would not have been able to deal with them because I was looking and saw all my validation from outside. So whatever anybody else thought about me, whatever they brought back to me, I would take on personal, and I didn't do well with it. In a meditation, when after Jeff got a hold of me, I wasn't really thinking that I was wanting to share all my stuff, right? I was still trying to move through it myself. It's not something that people talk about. But in a meditation, I was talking to life, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, what if people say all these horrible things about me? And this drop-in came in that was experiential, in that what I heard was these people in general have no clue who you are, how they act and how they perceive you. If they come at you from an aggressive standpoint, that's them. Their foundation's being cracked. That's fear talking. That's not them. You don't have to own that. What you do have to own is what you, Michelle, think about you. And if you're good with that, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If you know your intention in your heart, people can cuss you left and right, and you can see what it is that they're doing. And I can't take it as personal because they have no idea who I am. And I can see it for the fear that it doesn't make them bad people. I don't dislike them. I just realize that you don't know until you know. And I honor that, until you've experienced something, you don't know. And so it does not faze me one bit at all anymore. And I can't believe I'm saying that. That's like a miracle, because I would have been like, oh no, did they just say that about me?
That's growth.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
I think once again, you have to understand one's past to understand their present.
Yeah.
Right. And so why are they arguing? Why are they skeptical? And understand that you can't persuade them. And if they are persuadable, then eventually they will.
Right.
But that's not your job, right?
Exactly. I know now that I put it out there, and the people that can hear it or are going to receive something from it will get it. And the people that aren't, it's okay. Maybe they heard a little nugget of something, and later down the line, it'll help. I'm sure that there are different ways to get to this place of living heaven on earth. I just share my way in hopes that, people that are right there and they're searching, that they'll hear this and they'll know that it's possible for them too.
I love that. I love these conversations.
I do too. It reminds me, they say that the teacher says or teaches what they need to be reminded of the most. So every time I get to engage, it's a feel good for me too.
You were talking about those nuggets, and if, someone might get a little piece of nugget from here, right? And then they might go to Jeff with a whole different guest and get a similar nugget, or a nugget that fits together with everything else. And then, maybe it's kind of like me. It's when you start piecing everything together, life starts to make sense,
It
right?
does.
It's
And it
not,
shows up for you, doesn't it, Tyler? I'm sure you can say that too, right? Like, however
it
you got
changes
to
your
this
life.
place. Yeah, it changes your life. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions I ask everyone. What is your definition of the meaning of life?
The meaning of life. Um, I believe that we are here to remember who we are, the light and love of who we are. It's kind of like we are, again, extensions of life force energy, God. Um, and in order for God to know itself, we're that extension, right? We're soul extensions. So we come into this upside down world, if you will, almost to forget, moving through contrast. And then the goal is to come back to the light and love of who we are and just become the best version of who we are.
And if you had one message to leave the world, what would it be?
Know that you are divinely connected, that the power is within, it's not outside of you. And that once you tap into that, life just begins to unfold magically for you.
And how can people find you and contact you and find your work?
Yeah.
And
So,
where I know you do a mobile IV, and
right.
so
I'm still I'm almost ready to order products, and then I'll be out there doing IV hydration and vitamin therapy. And then I'm also offering coaching to help people move through transition. But you can find me. I have a Facebook page that you can find me on, and it's under Candence Michelle Ledbetter. And then Sacred Crossings is still very new. I don't have too many videos, but you can reach me there on YouTube. And then, of course, my email is lifelineconnect@yahoo.com. And so you can pop me a message and I'll get back with you.
awesome. Well, I enjoyed this conversation. It was fun, and I hope to have you back.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you so much for this platform. Congratulations on getting this up and going. I think
Thank
it's
you.
awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me on the Light You Are podcast. If you want to support this channel, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. Also, if you haven't checked out my children's book, The Light You Are, it's available only on Amazon. We're all just trying to remember who we are, the light we are.